Director of Urban Create Agency. He's also business developer affiliated with Soka Logistics, and he's also in the building helping us walk through the steps of us becoming entrepreneurs of note. And we're hoping by the end of this year, come next year, this time, we are singing a different story. Last week, we were being taught about the importance of setting sales objectives for 2024. I hope you and I have been learning something there and thinking about setting those goals. Today, though, we're going full force looking at how faith and in itself comes in to help you strengthen your business. Good morning and welcome. Faith and Entrepreneurship, how Christian principles drive business growth. That's what we're all about this morning. And of course, we have a guest of the day. And you might imagine that he is also a Christian. In fact, a big part of who you recognize him as is a Christian. He's also been a brand ambassador. He's in business. We want to hear all these things this morning from him about how he's made this work. I'll introduce you to our guest of the week in a second, but let me start off by welcoming and saying good morning to our favorite business coach who's in the building. He is the business development and strategy consultant for Beyond Borders Logistics and Soka International. I almost interchanged those two. Good morning, Stephen Chikosha. How are you? Interesting discussion we're having this morning.
Interesting indeed. Good morning, FoLake. Good morning, listeners. I'm happy to be here, especially during this time, where we have the festive season, the vibe, we can see it. And it's the best moment to discuss a topic like this.
So, do you remember when you were saved?
Ah, yes, I do.
But do you remember?
I do.
Yeah?
I do remember. I was quite young then. I grew up in a Protestant church, and I would confess that at that time it was my mother who was pushing me a lot to go to church.
All of our mothers.
Yeah, to go to church and also to get baptized and the like. So we, in our church, we would go through some teachings, and until you pass the teachings, then you would qualify for baptism. So that was there at that time.
So
yes.
I'm quite fascinated about this discussion we are talking about, because when you are a Christian specifically, you are born and raised to say everything you become must reflect your faith and your religion. And I'm wondering if many of our businesses today would certainly reflect our faith and those principles that are Christian. Before we bring in our guest of the day, I wanted to know from you, in your understanding, when we talk about Christian principles driving a business, what does that look like?
I think everything that we do, whether you are in business, whether you are employed, we operate within God's plan. That's what I believe in. So if you start from that perspective, you'd actually recognize that for you to succeed, you should put God first. So if you are in business, for example, what it means is the things that inform your vision, the things that you inform the goals that you would like to achieve, you should put God first. And you should understand that whatever we do, eventually, as human beings, we are not immortal. We'll pass on, and the things that we leave are for generations to come. So our mission is to serve God. Our businesses then should come and play that role. And what it also means is that in our dealings, be it in business and the other things and the leadership that come with business, we should have integrity and honesty, even in dealing with our customers. Those are the important things that we should put on the fore. How do we create relationships with our customers, and how do we grow them? Even with our partners and employees, do we value integrity and honesty? So I think that's very crucial. Then the other important thing that is very difficult for many people to implement, especially those that start the businesses, like your entrepreneurs, your founders, it's servant leadership. When we have this popular, I would call it a cliche, but we have this boss chakati. What it does, it gives you that feeling that I'm here, I'm the boss, I am everything, I'm the beginning and the end, but when we look at Christianity, we are actually encouraged to lead from the front, to be the stewards of of the values that are the cardinal points of Christianity, we should have that servant leadership and prioritize serving others than ourselves. So it's very crucial that, for example, if you have employees, do you prioritize them? Yeah. When you are faced with a problem, how do you deal with it? It's things like that that we are going to answer today. And second last, I would like to talk about the issue of ethical decision making. How do you arrive at making a decision? Do you look at the facts? Do you look at, do you listen to grapevine? Do you look at data? How do you get to making a decision in the end? Do you look at prejudice, where you say, I should now pay back? So it's also those things that we can talk about today. And then lastly, the issue of stewardship, recognizing that as human beings, everything that we do, everything that we implement, it's a gift from God. And how then do we make sure that we do our businesses, we achieve our goals for God's glory? I would say, for a start, this is what I can say on our topic today.
That's the voice of Stephen Chikoja, Managing Director of Urban Create Agency. We're talking this morning about a very interesting discussion, faith in entrepreneurship. We want to look at Christian principles and how they drive business growth. And I think it goes without saying, it's a no-brainer that it would be prudent for us to then actually connect with somebody who identifies with the brand Christianity and drives what they do on a day-to-day scale. If there was a poster face for somebody who is known as a Christian in business, it would be this guy. For crying out loud, he's been an ambassador because of this tag or the brand or the face that we see him. He's no stranger to the crunch. We've had him actually a couple of times. He wears a lot of different hats and shoes. Today, he's wearing his entrepreneurship hat. Last week, 2 weeks ago, he was here as we were trying to figure out addiction and our young people, what's going wrong. Yes, you are right. It is Tembalami. Good morning, Tembalami. How are you doing?
Good morning, FoLake. How are you doing? Thanks so much for having me. Steve, thank you so much. That was an amazing introduction to the topic. And it's a very interesting topic because we are claimed to be 80% Christian.
Right.
So I think just that title alone should have reduced the rate of corruption around our corporates. But yeah, it is an interesting topic. Yeah.
Actually, when you put it like that, it's actually very scary.
Yes.
Because 80%, that means 4 out of every 5 of us identifies as a Christian.
As Christian, yes.
So if we're looking at the corruption rates in our country, that means 4 out of 5 people may very well be Christian and participating in activities
exactly.
that are, okay, that's a terrible way to process this. And maybe let's actually start there.
Okay.
When we are saying we identify as a Christian and we become Christian entrepreneurs, in your mind, how do you define that?
I think one of the first things is there's no such thing as business ethics. There's just ethics. So when you're saying you're a Christian and you're running a Christian business, you can't be a Christian and running a non-Christian business. It doesn't make sense because it goes against all your ethics. So the first things first is, if I say I'm running a Christian business, the values, the vision of the business, because Habakkuk 2 verse 2, I'm going into the word directly, says write the vision down. So that he that may run with it. So the moment you write the vision down, there are now 2 people involved. That someone is going to run with the vision, which means whatever business that I'm doing, it's not about me. There are other people that are coming to run with the business. So whenever we are going to make a decision, it should be in line with our vision, values, and goals.
I love that.
Yeah.
As you were saying that, I also realized that for someone like you, you are the definition of your faith having provided or illuminated your purpose.
Yes.
And the direction that you have taken as a person. For the rest of us, how do you think faith can do that, where it now, shapes your purpose and even defines the direction you take?
No, I think faith is one of the most amazing things that you can have in business, because most of the business or entrepreneurship is creating something out of nothing. And it's difficult to do that when you have no faith. So I've seen that there are people that end up looking for certain things or certain religions, quote unquote, so that they just have something where they can base their faith. Kasamwe ke kungozembera, you know, kungoti ungoeni something cha unobeliever. So nyoka kadachi, because they need to have something where they anchor their faith in. But then we as Christians, we anchor our faith in God, and it says, now faith is the substance of things that are hoped for, things that are unseen. So the moment you do that, you visualize. And that's where faith comes in, because you're hoping for things that are unseen. When there was no company, now there's Econet.
Yeah.
So you have to hope and have faith that these things will work. And most of our entrepreneurs, it has to be something that you visualize and say, this thing has to work. I don't have the money, I don't have the means, but I have faith in God and the ability that He has given me to create, that this thing will happen.
I love that. So what I'm hearing from you is at 27 minutes after 9, we're speaking this morning to Timber Lami, one of our favorite gospel musicians, and he's also into business. And this morning we're talking about faith and entrepreneurship, you know, how your business growth can be driven by Christian principles. And he's talking about the power of faith in defining your purpose and the direction that you have. And I love what you said at the end there, that sometimes even when you are clueless, a sense of faith will make you a risk taker. It will make you continue to go forward. Ordinarily, if you don't have that faith in you, you just see the problems and then you don't move forward.
Yes.
Now, I also would imagine for somebody who is faith-based, you also believe your skills and abilities come from God. For some people, they always have this issue where they say, but I'm a Christian. Should I work in places where they sell alcohol? For example, I went there straight, and we'll come back as we look at the principles. But for how then do you make that work when you look at yourself as somebody who's faith-driven? You are wanting to get into business with the idea of, you know, being a Christian, but you're living in a real world. You're in the marketplace where some of the things you need to do may not necessarily be.
Okay. So I've, from my experience, I've had opportunities where I have to pick something that makes me profit, but doesn't align with my Christian values. And that's a very tough place to be, because immediately before you even go with it, you're already double-minded. And the word says a double-minded person is unstable in all his ways. So the problem now is, if you go into this, you can't go wholeheartedly with all your might and all your energy, because there's always that inkling at the back of your mind that this is not the right thing. So when I started doing music, I started doing secular music. There are things that I could not excel in that other musicians would excel in, because they were sold out for the idea. They didn't care what they did. If they had to pose naked, they can pose naked. They don't care.
Right.
So as a Christian, there are certain places where you know you're not supposed to be, and you feel you still have to make a profit. So you go there with fears and inhibitions. The problem with that is you can't deliver to the highest level because your faith is not in it. So that's the question that we all struggle with. And you find that sometimes Christians make the worst thieves. And because they are not fully sold out in their tsotsiness,
Right.
so because they are not sold out, they don't believe in what they're doing. They're just doing it to survive. So I that's where I need to go back to say, you really need to work on your conscience. If you're going to work for an alcohol beverage company, you have to love alcohol. I went for a field trip at one of the factories where they make alcohol. There were some chemical engineers there who were doing the mixing and the distilling and all those things that they do.
Yeah.
Those people love their alcohol. They were drinking it while hot, tasting it, and they're like, this is good. You could see that they were sold out to what they were doing. But take Tembalami and put him there, he doesn't drink. He doesn't give you the same passion because he doesn't have the same belief and faith in what they're trying to do. And okay.
Yeah, go on. Go on. This is
So
why
that's why Paul says to those that feel that pork is unclean, they should not eat it. So if you look at a business idea and you feel it's not good for you as a Christian, don't go into it, because you are not going to put your whole heart into it.
Right.
You are going to be double-minded the whole way. And as long as you're double-minded, you know what we do to our kids, like, you're not gonna bore, but you're not gonna make food. That kid can't excel to the level of Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi, because Lionel Messi at 8 years old, he was moved from his country and went to Spain to join the Barcelona Academy, and that's all he did.
Right.
So his faith, his belief, his everything, his diet, everything that he believed was, I am going to be the greatest football player in the world. So you see where his faith was. So the problem now is sometimes we go with divided faith and say, but backup.
Yeah.
So you are not 100% sold out.
We're talking this morning about faith in business, faith as an entrepreneur, and how we can use Christian principles to drive business growth. Timbalami was just breaking down to us, and I know many people have been entangled in this. I know at my church, one of our church leaders, for a while, when he started getting into this business of selling alcohol and things like that, the church was literally divided. And I'd imagine if you're somebody also who's in business and you see yourself as a Christian or strong in your faith, there are some certain questions and challenges that may come. We're talking about that this morning. And coming up next, we want to talk about trusting God's plan when faith becomes foolishness in a second. And of course, our voice of the day is Tembalam. I'm sure you've already picked that up. And Stephen is still in the building.
Talk is brought to you by your business partners, Urban Create Advertising Agency, Beyond Borders Logistics, and Soka International. Talk to us on +261 772 409 651. Your success, our commitment.
Now, one of the things that most people who are religious have is faith. And I think we kind of started speaking about that. You have faith and you trust in the Lord. For goodness sake, we read in the Holy Book about having spoken to burning bushes, wine from water, like the most outstanding miracles. And for the largest part, we've all been convinced and taught that indeed it's what you confess and anything is possible. But in business, there's certain challenges that will happen that will test your endurance. And of course, the typical religious person, Christian, will pull out the Bible and start to, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. But sometimes, Timbalami, there is also foolishness that is no longer faith.
Yes.
How do we draw the line? How do we know that this is not, I mean, when you hear the story of Mary being pregnant by nobody, that sounds ridiculous. But she trusted her narrative. She trusted her mission and her purpose enough to say, this is what I carry. I'm going to see it through.
Exactly.
In 2023, how can we be Virgin Marys, pregnant with their purpose, and carry you through so that it's still faith and not foolishness?
So Christianity needs balance, and that's a very a tough topic for most Christians, because God will bring the rain, but you have to prepare the field. He's not going to prepare the field for you.
Right.
So there are opportunities that God will prepare for you, like the 10 maidens that were waiting for Chikomba. Chikomba pachakauya vangawane mafuta ndo akapinda mpati. So there are certain things that you have to do to prepare for the coming of the opportunity or the coming of Christ.
Right.
So the problem sometimes that we have in the church is God is not in the business of making chairs like what TD Jakes does. God makes trees. He has given you imagination to say, I'll shape this into a table, a tree, something amazing. You can do that. Create tools. God does not make iPhones. God gives you cobalt. You have to create the iPhone.
Yeah.
So the problem now that we have in the church is we do all-night prayers, praying for Lamborghinis. God is not in the business of Lamborghinis. He creates iron. You make the Lamborghini. So he has given you something that is amazing. Because to everything that he has created, he's given ability. If you look at ants, they're small. But if you look at an ant hill and what they can do and to bring down a house, it's amazing. Those tiny little things can bring your house down. It's because they have been created in such a way that they have that. Us as humans, what we've been given is intellectual creativity, where we can create things out of nothing. So the problem now is there are times that our faith becomes laziness, where we want God to prepare the land, grow the wheat, make the bread, and I just come and eat. And that's not God. Right. Because God gives you the ability to create wealth.
So when we look at Jesus, we hear that he was a carpenter.
Yes.
But it didn't seem like he was, the biggest furniture shop around, despite the fact that he was Jesus, and that's kind of odd, but it's a story for another day. Is it a problem for us as Christians to actually be loving the idea of making money and actually want to buy those Lamborghinis? Because it kind of feels like it's slightly removed from Christian values a little bit. Coming back to issues of servant leadership and things like that. Yeah,
going back to the carpenter, I think you have to be a very good carpenter for you to be known by a whole city. All of Bethlehem knew that this guy is the carpenter. So I'm sure he had a level of competency so that everyone knew what kind of carpenter he was. So going back to what you were asking, I think it's important to put first things first. What God made you to be is what you need to put first. The problem sometimes is we are divided. We want to be this and we want to be this. That is also great. But sometimes you need to be known for what God has put in you. And some of the things will just come and break out of that.
Got you.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we're talking earlier about ethics, and I think one of the most important things for us as believers is being honest, telling the truth. But sometimes in business, it's not always easy for you to tell the truth. I think you, as somebody who's lived in the public eye, also know that sometimes you need to manage certain narratives. How do we balance that as Christians? Being honest, but also managing.
I think the best way to manage anything is being honest.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Managing a narrative and still maintaining your ethics or your morals.
Your morals, yes. No, it's a really tough question because you also sometimes don't want your client to panic. Let's say you are supposed to deliver something in time and it's delayed. And it's a very difficult place sometimes for someone to actually call a client because you're afraid that they might pull the job and then you lose the money that you've invested. And we have found that people exaggerate sometimes and say, no, everything is okay. Or sometimes we actually believe everything is okay when it's not. But one thing I've seen is the best narrative is usually the truth. Because you don't have to remember what you said yesterday or last week. The truth is better. It's there are some people that are good at creating smoke screens and all these things. Like, I mean, the entertainment business, everything has to look larger and sound larger than it really is for people to believe it. And we tell these stories, and we've got publicists and spin doctors that are good at spinning stories so that we look our best. The problem sometimes with that is people will hold on to that narrative and have an image of you. The day that you fall short of that image, that's when everyone starts attacking you and you lose business. One of the things that I love about the Bible is when they were writing stories about the people in the Bible, they didn't omit that David took someone's wife and then got them killed. They could have created a perfect David who was the psalmist, who was so cool and did all these fancy things, but they kept some of those shortfalls so that we can also learn that we can be good Christian people that also have shortcomings. And even Apostle Paul says, I have a thorn in my flesh that I struggle with. So as a business person, I have to be honest sometimes and say, you know what, I struggle in this direction. So I need a better finance person to manage my finances because I'm an impulse buyer. I can easily go into a trust account and take funds that I'm holding in trust and spend them on the new GD6. So because I know I have that weakness, because sometimes it's not like you plan to take the money. You're thinking, so I can just take this one and then do a cover. So when you know you've got this weakness, be honest with your business partners and say, you know what, I don't think I want to be in charge of this money because I am not great in terms of that.
Got you.
That weakness now becomes a strength.
So when we're talking now about you giving such fantastic examples there, I'm thinking in terms of having a strong moral campus. I mean, by the time David is looking at Bathsheba, then wants her, has her, kills his husband, kills her husband. It kind of feels like David has no moral compass, or like he's on the extreme end of things, but he's only human. So in us being Christians who have a strong moral compass that you must also communicate in your values, what would you say are good examples of that strong campus that translates in our values that we can then communicate to the people we serve?
The best way to show that you're human is to create systems that protect your company and that protect you from yourself. Because it's easy to be the most, the cleanest person when you don't have any money. Kana usati wane mari yekuti software PA ari kushandira kuti aite second wife yako. That test is not hard because it's not there. But the day that you have these resources, you can go fly kuenda ku Dubai when you want to, and the day that you are in charge of certain funds that even if you take them, no one will ask. That's where the real test comes. So the best way to serve yourself and the future of your children's children is to create systems that protect you from you. Because at some point you're going to be a David, where you can see that this is a Bathsheba that I can take and I can get this guy killed and I am the king and no one can ask. So we all get to that position as business people, as politicians, as leaders, as everyone, that we get to a point where I have a CEO and I have enough power. I can fire you if I want to. So it's easy for me to abuse those powers. The only way I can stop abusing those powers is I put in bylaws and systems that protect me from me. And that is the most difficult thing. If we can do that as Christians, it will be easy.
And I think for us Africans particularly, business.
Exactly.
I hear what you're saying. Put the systems to protect yourself from yourself.
And the Baba business is, it was created in such a way that it created hierarchy and respect in our societies. But the problem now is it has gone into the church, and my pastors have become an Baba. So no one, even their board, can hold them accountable. And CEOs, even their board of directors, cannot give them advice. Because in the Nababa, I started this thing from the ground up. So we as Christians now, we need to learn from the people that have gone before us. To say, Anababa wakamboita before. What did that lead to? Because if you look at David, he failed to set a good example. His son did the same thing, went on top of the roof with 10 of his wives. You see, there is a continuation. What you do in moderation, your children and your people that follow you will do in excess. So whenever you are in your company as a CEO, if you show that petty cash for personal things, we have set a precedent that can I FD mari. So it just becomes and there's a culture in Zimbabwe that we are failing to break now. It started when all the great companies were owned by Europeans, and us as black people, we created a facade that if you steal from work, it's not stealing. Now we are the custodians. We are now the people owning those companies, and we are now stealing from ourselves. So so it has become difficult now to put local Zimbabweans in places of trust. That's why you've seen people are now importing executives from other countries. You find that in the biggest companies, there's an Indian guy somewhere, or someone from a European guy who's come to just fill in a position, because the culture has become ndikaba computer yekubasa andina kuba data diri kubasa or data punishment or something. So that culture started iri diri rekuti taiba sando nezvipanera kuma industry kumurungu tiburisa zvinhu nebackdrop because I feel kuti but then murungu wacho tiso now.
It's 40 minutes before we get to 10, and as we're talking, I'm hoping there's a part of you as well that has, you know, really stood firm in terms of what you believe in being a person who's upright all the time. And as you are upright, you are also setting, and I think this is what Mbalami is also highlighting, you're setting a precedence in your organization, in your business, that infiltrates in your values. Your children will see this, your employees will also see that, but he is an upright man. Let them not learn it from you, not because you taught them to be thieves by how you run. He says put systems, because systems will protect you from yourself in times where being upright is also difficult. When we come back in a second, we'll continue with our conversation. Today we're looking at faith in entrepreneurship, how business, how Christian principles can drive business growth. We've spoken about having a strong moral compass. I love something that Stephen mentioned earlier. He spoke about servant leadership, and I would love us to tap into a little bit of what that looks like, because that certainly is a driving principle in Christianity. It's 9:48. Good morning.
Talk was brought to you by your business partners, Urban Create Advertising Agency, Beyond Borders Logistics, and Soka International. Talk to us on +263 772 409 651. Your success, our commitment. When sending or receiving your goods, do you want to experience the most innovative and efficient courier service in Zimbabwe? You can track your goods throughout the transportation process. Guarantee safe delivery of your goods today with our unparalleled overnight, rush and on-demand and same-day delivery services. Get in touch with our business development team on 0713 635 848 or 0783 778 443. Soka, better delivery. Tuchimanya. Are you in business? Do you want to ship goods from China, Dubai, or Turkey? Your multi-award-winning brand, Beyond Borders Logistics, is giving you some of the very best offers on the shipping market today. Book our China to Zimbabwe Priority Express shipping service and much more. Find out today how we can go above and beyond for you. Contact our teams on the China Corridor, Mandy on +86 139 7038 2526. Jolene on +86 137 1925 8125. Dubai Corridor, Hasil on +971 58 170 0334. Najad +971 52 379 2369. Harare on 08644 290021 or 08644 878164 or 0783 778 443.
So profound. We'll say,
do you often send or receive goods to and from different places in Zimbabwe? If the answer is yes, then book for most efficient courier service with the multi-award-winning brand Soka International. Guarantee quick and safe delivery of your goods today by contacting our business development team on 0713 635 848 or 0783 778 443. Soka, better delivery. Tochimanya.
So how easy has it been for you being a Christian, being somebody who is faith-driven and still be in business and still try to be upright as much as possible? Maybe it was your driver's license and you knew you had passed that road test, but you also felt like someone is sabotaging your prospects of you getting that license. maybe it was your passport. You really need to travel. But there's that one guy, you know, who can power your drink. Has it always been easy for you as a Christian to always remain upright, even in the most difficult of circumstances? And how do you rationalize that as you then get about your day? I'm curious from you, what was that one situation that you've had that tested your uprightness, your Christian principles to the core in you trying to do business? Maybe it was a container that came from China, and for some reason it's being held up at the border. You look for someone you know, but in some ways you know that you are, you know what I'm trying to say. Have you been through those situations, and how do you rationalize that? And this is not a judgment question, is really trying to understand with our theme of being an entrepreneur in faith, having your Christianity driving your business growth. Is it always easy, and how do you make that work? Timbalami, have you been through those situations yourself where, you know, you really are trying to do the most? You are trying to be good, but there's always that one situation where your back is up against the wall, and you know that if I make this call, or if I just, it could make things easier, quicker.
Yeah. I think in Zimbabwe, that's our everyday. We have become a people that believe in, I need to get something. So the biggest issue that I've always struggled with is, if where you're working, you are not getting enough that you have to be corrupt for you to survive, leave that job. Because one way or the other you will get caught. And it's a tough situation, especially for someone like me. I'm a public figure. If I'm in the business where I have to be corrupt every time to get the work done, then I most likely in the wrong business. And the problem now is, as you get bigger as a public figure, you not only get friends, but you also draw envy to you. So I want to encourage the people that are in business and you have a Christian tag on you, that makes your life a bit harder, because where others just go get it done easily because they know who to pay and who to grease to get things to happen. You might need to reconsider and find a business where, if you set parameters and structures, you might not need to do certain things. So, but
it's a tough life.
It is a tough life. I will not lie to you. I do radio jingles and adverts. There are companies that I failed to work with because their executives are saying, I want to give you this jingle, but I need you to give me a certain amount from what you're going to bill my company. So the problem with that is, I'm already stealing, because the company is my client, not you, the employee. So I'm conniving with you to steal from your company. That will go broke, and you and I will have no work at the end of the day. And if we're doing a pitch and it's 3 of us, and if I pay you, it means I don't have to put as much effort in my jingle anymore. It just means I have to do an average job because I already have the job, because I've paid the decision maker. Gotcha. So that's the biggest problem with these things. And the most brilliant thing about us working on these kind of projects is the people that were working on these projects, we were all friends. So we knew each other, that we are pitching for this job together, and would celebrate each other that you did a great job on this one. So we had pride, and we still have pride in winning a job fairly, to say I did a great jingle and the client is happy and they are paying me. The problem comes when I start paying behind to get that job. What it does is, I'm going to do a short jingle, My best friend is going to do a better jingle. And the better jingle will not win. My shoddy jingle will win. But it doesn't win because when it goes to the client, it doesn't deliver the goods.
Yeah. Oof.
And then it just becomes a mess. So that's the biggest problem that we're facing right now with these kickbacks and neo kind of things.
Yeah.
If I am Purisa, I'm saying a clearance for someone, let's say it's and I say give me something, it means I cannot come back and say you were not cleared because you have a criminal record here and there and there. I'll just go and print and say, there you go,
Yes.
cleared. But what it does is you are sending someone somewhere who's got a record and you've put your name on it. The day it's going to be discovered, it's going to come back to you because your signature is on that form.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we're struggling with, even at the driving place that you're talking about.
Yeah.
People are paying, so even the non-competent drivers are passing.
Are competent.
And, are going onto our roads. So if you are incompetent and you are given a truck to drive, imagine the damage that a haulage truck does if it goes into an accident. So look at how many people have died because I wanted an extra $50. So that is the things that we are facing as a nation right now.
And some of the things that we don't think about. 3 minutes before we round up, let's talk quickly about servant leadership as Stephen comes back. The idea of service, because that is one of the key pillars of being a Christian. How does servant leadership work within my company set up with my employees, but also creating that experience for my customers? Let's start with the employees.
I think
is that not a form of service, for example?
It is. You need to pay them well, fairly, because the Lord hates unequal scales. The problem that we have is sometimes employees can be numbers once your company is big enough. They are not human anymore. There are 2,000, 3,000 employees. So they're a wage bill. So I'm just looking at ways in which I can cut that wage bill so that I make more profits for my shareholders and for me. So we need to put ourselves in the shoes of my employees because they are the ones that take care of my customer, and my customer is the business. So as long as they are disgruntled, they are always going to ask for kickbacks. How many times have you gone through security and the security guard asks for money when you are about to leave the parking lot?
Right. And they're doing their job already.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the owner of the company just bought a new jelly. It's a reflection of who we are as a people, that there are certain things that we are failing to value. But if you look at Jesus, he had that servant leadership. Servant leaders eat last. They don't eat first. So you need to make sure that those brand ambassadors, the first brand ambassadors you have are your employees. What do they say about you?
Yeah, I love that. And as we're talking about servant leadership, as we are also coming to the end of our conversation, how are you living your Christian principles in your business, and how are they driving the business growth? Stephen, as we are coming to the end of our conversation today, very illuminating. I love how Tembalami was talking about protecting your name. If anything, do everything right to protect your name.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, actually. My biggest takeaway is that you should put in place policies, processes, procedures that protect you from
yourself.
I think everything else will fall in place. Even when we talk of servant leadership and the like, he was talking about, how you can remunerate your employees and a lot of other things. I think as long as you have your systems in place that protect yourself from yourself, I think everything else would fall in place. Brilliant stuff. I like this conversation.
It's 10 o'clock. It's time for the news. And as always, you can reach Stephen on all his social media platforms as Stephen Chikosho and Tembalami. You know how to reach Tembalami. It's also Tembalami on Facebook, Twitter. Seeing you on Twitter as well today, on LinkedIn, everywhere you want to catch a hold of him. We got to go to the news. It's 10 o'clock.